What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Ian Gary is clearly not happy with the idea of Islam Makhachev calling out Kamaru Usman for a potential title fight. As many fans already know, Usman has openly pushed for a shot at Islam next, and Islam has shown interest as well. But Gary sees a major problem with that matchup and didn't hold back when sharing his thoughts. He said that Khabib and his team are extremely smart and strategic when choosing fights. In Gary's view, they know exactly how to create matchups that appear interesting on the surface while actually being safe for their fighter. Gary then went straight at Usman's current status in the division. He said that in the welterweight landscape, Usman is irrelevant right now. He acknowledged that there was a time when Usman was arguably the greatest welterweight of all time, but added that those days are long gone. According to Gary, Usman is simply not close to that level anymore. He believes the team around Islam knows how to spin their words and build a narrative that makes the fight sound compelling, but in reality, it isn't the matchup fans truly want. Gary insisted that no real UFC fan is asking for Islam versus Usman. In his eyes, the audience wants to see Islam tested against the new generation of welterweights. He said fans want Islam versus him, Islam versus Shavkat, or even Islam versus guys like Paddy Pimblett or Matthew Semmelsberger, fighters who represent the next wave rather than names from the past. For Gary, the division has moved forward, and he believes the title picture should reflect that shift. Later in the conversation, Gary added that Islam is pushing for the Usman fight because it gives him an easy path to a 17th consecutive win. Gary said Islam wants a safe, controlled fight to secure the record without risking it against younger, more dangerous contenders. He argued that the matchup is more about convenience than competition, and that it does little for the future of the division. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to help support the channel. Moving on to another news, Du Plessis has finally opened up about his loss to Khamzat, a moment the MMA world has been waiting to hear more about. Back in August, fans witnessed one of the most dominant performances in recent UFC history when Khamzat defeated Du Plessis to claim the middleweight title. Since that night, Du Plessis has largely stayed quiet, only releasing a brief statement on social media where he took full responsibility for the outcome and refused to offer any excuses. He wrote that he had absolutely no excuses for his performance, admitting he was beaten by the better fighter that night. He congratulated Khamzat and expressed gratitude for the honor of sharing the octagon with him. Now, a newly released video shows Du Plessis reflecting on that loss in what appears to be an ad for Crypto.com. The video includes moments from the fight, shots of the chaos inside the cage, and footage of Du Plessis walking out of the arena afterward. While we cannot play the clip, the words he delivered were powerful. He said that in these moments, we are not defeated, we are human, and being human is the most courageous thing of all. He described these moments not just as times when we survive, but as moments where champions are born. Bravery, he said, lives in the heart, in the ability to endure loss and still stand tall. According to him, that strength lives inside all of us, born in the quiet moments and developed over a lifetime. No one can take that from him. He ended the message by saying the journey continues. He declared, "I am Du Plessis, born brave, and I will be back." The emotional depth of the message hit fans hard, and many felt chills hearing Du Plessis speak with such honesty and resilience. The video seems designed to capture the essence of a fighter rebuilding himself after a brutal loss, turning adversity into motivation rather than dwelling on defeat. It adds a new layer to Du Plessis' character, showing not just the athlete, but the human being behind the gloves. Moving on to another news, Ian Gary has delivered one of the boldest callouts of the entire year, laying out a detailed roadmap for how he believes he can not only break Islam Makhachev's legendary streak, but also take over the entire welterweight division. Gary declared that he is operating on a different level than the top contenders at 170 pounds, including Shavkat Rakhmonov, the only man to ever defeat him. The Shavkat situation itself has been complicated for months. His injury was extremely serious, and for a time, Russian media reported that he was even considering retirement because he felt the UFC was placing stardom above merit. But recently, Shavkat has appeared locked back in and fully committed to returning, ready to continue the climb he started long before the injury setbacks. Gary didn't hold back when addressing Islam's team either. He claimed their matchmaking strategy is carefully calculated and designed to minimize risk. In his view, they want Kamaru Usman because they believe he is the least dangerous option available. Gary pointed out that Usman is approaching 40 years old, barely holding onto a spot in the top 10, and no longer anywhere near the title picture. To him, the idea that Islam wants Usman is nothing more than a way to secure an easy 17th consecutive win, rather than facing a genuinely hungry contender. The Irish contender insists suggests that if Islam actually wants a real challenge, he should be looking toward the young, dangerous contenders rising through the welterweight ranks, not older names with fading momentum. Gary believes he represents the future of the division and the one fighter capable of stopping the Dagestani dominance that has defined Islam's run. He laid out his plan with complete confidence. First, he wants to beat Bilal Muhammad and make it undeniable that he is the next in line for the belt. He said that once he gets that win, there will be no argument left about who deserves the title shot. Then he wants to step in and stop Islam's streak, stating that Islam will never reach win number 17 because Gary will be the one standing across from him next. After taking the belt from Islam, Gary says he wants to defend it against Shavkat Rakhmonov, not just because it is the right thing to do for the division, but because he needs that win back. He wants to prove to the world and to himself that he is levels above Shavkat now. From there, Gary's plan continues with a fight against Carlos Praise, and he wants to do it in the most beautiful place in the world, Brazil. He says he'll beat Prates in his own country, a country Gary calls his adopted home. In his words, the Brazilians love him even more than they love Prates, and he believes that is simply a fact. Moving on to another news, Alex Pereira has been at the center of a heated discussion after talk surfaced about him potentially facing Khamzat in a grappling match. In a recent segment, the claim was made that Alex would get dominated by Khamzat in pure grappling, and the conversation around this matchup has only gotten louder. Recently, we covered Alex Pereira and Glover Teixeira responding to Khamzat and calling him out to a grappling match. They both expressed that Khamzat hasn't earned a UFC fight against Alex yet, and that stepping into a grappling contest might be the only thing that makes sense right now. Khamzat didn't hesitate. He responded quickly, essentially accepting the offer and calling it easy money, suggesting he sees very little risk in taking on Alex in that kind of format. Now, Bisangar Saskai, who just picked up a knockout win over Eric McConaughey in the third round at UFC 322, and then called out both Bo Nickel and Khamzat afterward, has chimed in on the whole situation. He reacted to Alex calling Khamzat out for a grappling match, and his take was blunt. He compared Alex facing Khamzat and grappling to himself, trying to go up against Lionel Messi in football. In his words, the wrestling and grappling levels are just too far apart. He made it clear that if the matchup was strictly about wrestling or grappling, Alex would be completely outclassed, no matter how strong or skilled he is in other areas of combat sports. Suskai went on to say that if Alex were to face Khamzat in MMA instead of grappling, the chances improve a little for Alex. With striking involved, the dynamic changes, the opportunities shift, and Alex's world-class kickboxing background becomes a factor. However, even with those tools added to the equation, Suskai still believes Khamzat would end up beating him. He emphasized that the physicality, the pressure, and the relentless grappling threat that Khamzat brings would eventually take over. In his view, Alex simply doesn't have the defensive grappling pedigree to survive long stretches against someone with Khamzat's intensity. Suskai also questioned why Alex even wants a grappling match with someone who specializes in that area, suggesting it feels like a mismatch from the start, especially when the levels are so drastically different. Moving on to another news, the MMA community was shaken after reports surfaced that a UFC fighter had been suspended for using PEDs. Yesterday, confirmation came through that Yasmin Lucindo tested positive for mestrolone, a banned substance. Lucindo, who is currently 5'2" in the UFC and coming off an impressive win over Angela Hill, had been scheduled to compete on December 13th against Jillian Robertson. However, everything changed once her test results were made public. According to the initial findings, Lucindo was allegedly caught using mestrolone, a medication typically prescribed to men dealing with low testosterone or hypogonadism. The news spread quickly, leading to immediate backlash and a lot of confusion surrounding how such a substance ended up in her system. Following the announcement of her suspension, Lucindo's team came forward and strongly denied any intentional use on her part. They emphasized that they are now working closely with USADA's replacement program, CSAE, as well as the Nevada State Athletic Commission, NSAC, to investigate whether a contaminated supplement is responsible for the positive test. Her manager, Tiago Okamura, spoke to MMA Junkie and offered more clarity on the timeline and the steps being taken to resolve the situation. He revealed that Lucindo was flagged in late September for metabolites of a prohibited substance, but her tests before and after that period came back clean. She was tested in August right after her fight, and that test was negative, then tested again in October, and that one also returned negative. This inconsistency has led her team to believe that the September result is linked to contamination rather than intentional use. Okamura went on to explain that Lucindo has never knowingly taken any banned substances, and based on the small amount detected, the team is confident this was not a case case of purposeful doping. They are currently working with Free Sports and the UFC to trace the exact source of the issue. Because the test in question was conducted while Lucindo was preparing to fight in Las Vegas, the NSAC has full jurisdiction over the case. The team has been cooperating with the commission, providing everything needed to clear Lucindo's names. As part of their investigation, they identified 2 supplements that match the time frame of the flag test. These supplements have now been sent to the SMRTL labs in Utah for extensive testing, with hopes of uncovering whether one of them was contaminated and caused the unexpected presence of mesterolone metabolites. Lucindo's camp stressed that transparency is their top priority, and they want the full truth to come out, whatever it may be. Despite the controversy, Lucindo remains a very young talent in the UFC at just 23 years old, with plenty of time to learn, grow, and move past this set. Moving on to another news, Kamaru Usman revealed something that genuinely shocked a lot of fans. On a recent episode of the Daniel Cormier show, Usman opened up about the only other time in his entire career that he was ever knocked out before the famous Leon Edwards head kick. He explained that long before that moment, it happened once during a hard sparring session with Michael Johnson. At the time, Johnson was just 3 weeks out from a fight. He was in peak condition, fast, sharp, and locked in. Usman said he had just taken 2 weeks off after his own fight, came back to the gym, and jumped straight into sparring with Johnson without easing back in. According to Usman, Michael pushed him for a full 5-minute round, and toward the end, things took a turn. Johnson poured on the pressure, outpaced him, and eventually sat him down with a clean shot that dropped him hard. Usman said he fell back and even landed awkwardly on his own arm. What makes the story even more interesting is that there's supposedly video of the knockout, a clip Usman says still exists. Rashad Evans also has a copy tucked away in the archives, and according to Usman, Rashad never lets him forget it. Usman laughed about the whole situation, saying he's surprised the video hasn't already been leaked online, considering how the internet works today. He admitted that if Rashad wasn't such a close friend, the clip probably would have gone viral the moment Usman became champion. In today's clout-chasing world, someone would have dropped it instantly, but because Rashad looks out for him, that footage has stayed buried, at least for now. He also gave a ton of credit to Michael Johnson, calling him one of the most uniquely gifted fighters he's ever trained with. He described Johnson as an incredibly rare mix of speed and power, especially for such a lean, wiry frame. Usman said people underestimate him, but in the gym, Michael could absolutely put it on you if you weren't ready, even back then, and even now. Usman maintained that Johnson possessed a special level of athleticism that very few fighters have ever matched. He finished by saying that moment in sparring wasn't something he was embarrassed about, but rather a reminder of just how dangerous and skilled Johnson truly was. Moving on to another news, the Mighty Guru show has officially come to an end, and the MMA community has been buzzing about why it happened. If you've been keeping up, you already know that MMA Guru and Demetrius Johnson teamed up to create a podcast where they broke down fights, reacted to events, and mixed their 2 very different personalities into one show. But after just 3 episodes, everything came crashing down, and the cancellation was confirmed yesterday following a wave of backlash directed at Guru for some of his recent comments online. Guru took to social media to address the situation directly. He wrote that he had been fine with people criticizing him for past remarks, including an old donation controversy from 2019 and comments he made during live streams. But when the criticism shifted toward DJ and people began questioning why Demetrius would collaborate with him in the first place, that's when he decided to step away. He announced early that the Mighty Guru show was officially over, saying DJ stood his ground and that a detailed video would be dropping soon to explain everything further. Guru added that he had already spoken with DJ privately after the most recent podcast episode, and he even messaged him later saying he was willing to back down from the drama. But according to him, the issues had been piling up for a while. In a video he released afterward, Guru explained that the producers behind the show had repeatedly contacted him, asking him to tone down his posts and comments on social media. He said they had been worried about his tweets from the very beginning, and those concerns had been building steadily episode after episode. Guru mentioned that several of his past posts, whether about fighters, controversial topics, or heated replies, were brought up to him many times. He said the producers kept insisting he dial things back, but he simply wasn't willing to change his style or personality for the show. He also noted that even unrelated topics, old jokes, and community drama were getting flagged behind the scenes, and he felt the pressure rising each week. The real breaking point and the reason the backlash exploded came from comments Guru made about Muslims during the latest episode. Due to platform rules, those details can't be fully repeated, but viewers who saw the episode know exactly what set everything cooling off. It was the final straw, and the production team ultimately pulled the plug. Guru called it the icing on the cake, saying the show had been headed toward cancellation since day one because of constant tension between his outspoken style and the producer's expectations.